Everyone, welcome to, I think we call it the Orita Podcast. It's a very exciting title. Joe, when I started this, I'm old enough to know who to talk to in e-commerce. And that was always the conceit of this discussion. You're one of those people. Charles, you made the cut. I'm really excited to have Charles Cushing and Joe Gullo here. I'm not even going to try to introduce the two of them. I'm going to let them do it. But suffice to say, this should be a very, very fun discussion about ops and how to build real brands and all the fun stuff with logistics and everything in between. Charles, I'd love for you to do a proper intro of yourself to start.
Yeah, sure. Super happy to be here, Aaron. Thanks for having me on. And I'll give you like the relevant bits of my my background that led me here. But yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of a community called StartOps. It's a group of about 250 senior operations leaders, mostly from omnichannel brands. Um, and happy to go deeper into anything about that. But I'd say like the main things to know about startups are like it's just operators. So we've been very careful to keep it very curated. No vendors in the group, only sort of like more senior director level and above people, and again just sort of tightly focused on e-commerce brands. So as a result, like we get really good conversations going. Joe, as an active participant and contributor to many of those, and it's been a really special sort of thing to be able to curate over the years. And the origin of it was just going back a bit, like I was myself somewhat briefly the COO of a venture-backed e-commerce brand. If you know ThreadUp, it was like a ThreadUp competitor back in the day, but like, growing super fast. We raised our Series B from Andreessen, and basically I was the CEO of that company. I ran 35,000 square foot warehouse in the middle of San Francisco, reprocessing clothes. And every day I was just like hitting these big problems, big expensive problems, and I didn't have anyone to talk to about them. And so startups was kind of born out of that. I just started rounding up operators in the city, taking them out for drinks, being able to like talk shop and learn stuff. And eventually we moved on to Slack, and it's kind of been growing organically ever since. So that's the startup story. And before that, I was incongruously in finance. So big jump from that.
You and I actually met, I think, with Galleon days, right?
That's right. Yeah. So after Toys ended up getting acquired by eBay and post that,
As you do.
as you do. Well, it made sense for them. They were looking into managed selling. So that was like the play for them. Yeah. And then we went, the co-founder of Twice and I, or one of the co-founders, the CTO and I broke off after a little while, and we're like, okay, like let's start another startup. What do we want to do? We tried a bunch of stuff in spaces outside of e-commerce ops, and we're just like hitting a wall. And then finally we like had the idea for Galleon, which was basically data and visibility for your parcel spend. And we pitched like 3 people, and the third person we pitched was like, come to our office right now and build this for us. So we did.
Thanks, man. I have a lot of follow-ups on startups, and we'll get in there. But before we do, Joe, would love for you to introduce yourself, go
Yeah,
through your background, please.
absolutely. Hey, everybody. I'm Joe Gullo, currently leading supply chain for Thursday Boots. I've been bouncing around the sort of e-commerce space since the mid 2000s. Back when we used to argue about, is it like a big E or a little E? I don't know if that has been decided in e-commerce. Do you know? You look like you know.
I
Um,
want to know I'm very
I
curious
don't
of
know.
your opinions.
I don't know either. It's like GIF and GIF. That eternal argument is still being
True.
fought. Charles, with big E or little E? Do you know?
I'm little E,
I think
big
I'm little
C.
E, big C. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but then I just sometimes just do commerce because it's like,
So let it be known henceforth that is the answer. Anyway, so I've been bouncing around e-commerce space. I was straight out of college into e-commerce, very ops heavy startups, use textbooks, so it's literally heavy, but also required very thin margin, very high level of execution, very low level of expertise on the team at that time, and really learned how to do things the right and wrong way through that business for about 4 or 5 years. And sort of books have to some extent gone away a little bit in the college world. At least that industry has totally changed. So I got into that and decided I needed to get into different types of stuff if I was going to stay in operations, because like a book is a book, right? And it ships the same way, and it packs the same way, and it picks the same way if it's big or small. So moved on to an amazing company called Revzilla that was a retailer, not necessarily like a D2C brand, but a retailer in the motorcycle space. So helmets, jackets, pants, boots, anything but the bike itself. We were shipping and selling. We had a couple of facilities in the US, about 100,000 SKUs, and just an amazing good time. And that's probably the early 2010s. I'm very old. Yeah, early 2010s. And then I got recruited. I got a very sketchy LinkedIn message one day from a man and a brand I never heard of. I said, Joe, are you in the job market? And I was like, no, but I guess let's talk about it. And it was the man from a company that didn't even have a logo at that time. It was called Jet.com. And Jet was only 3 months old. Again, there wasn't a logo. When I interviewed, they were like, these are the options for logos. What do you think? And I don't know what I chose, but one was chosen. And that company was founded by a man named Mark Laurie, who had founded diapers.com and Quidsy, and then went on in 2 or 3 years' time to be sold to Walmart. What was at that time one of the biggest e-commerce acquisitions that's been eclipsed at this point. But stayed there through that, went to Walmart for a few years after that, learned an immense amount. And we were very much hyperscaling at Jet. So I went from like me and a friend of mine from high school in a warehouse on the East Coast to a year later, me and 500 of my closest friends, just 2 warehouses later. And then 6 months after that, it was me and like 1,800 or 2,000 of my closest friends in a building, again, all in about 1.5, 2 years time. So incredible hyperscale going on there. I stayed married somehow. Had an MBA, had kids all at the same time. So gained a lot of weight though. So there's always a side effect. And then from there, it sort of moved on to the brand side. I had a lot of fun. I was at Glossier for a couple of years through COVID. And then right now, I can honestly say I'm the happiest I've ever been at Thursday Boots. I'm actually a customer, which is great. I've had a closet full and get to have a good time solving a bunch of like crazy problems every day. And then, met Charles and got introduced to the community and realized, well, I got confirmation of something I've always suspected, that everybody in like at least e-commerce operations is solving the same exact problems. Nothing is unique to the point where everybody has like the same Google Sheets. You just name different things. And if you could just combine some expertise, everybody can get lifted off a little bit, which has been really nice and true.
That's
Can I tell
awesome.
you a funny?
That's it.
Can I tell you a funny Jet story?
Yeah.
So, in my desperate quest for mentors or people who like knew what they were doing at Twice, I somehow got connected with Scott Hilton.
Oh, yeah.
So he was the CRO, I believe, at Jet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I met him, and I think I maybe met him before he went to Jet. But anyway, he became like my ops idol.
Really?
And
yeah. He was the CLO or I want to say CLO at Quidsy as well. So he went.
That's right. I think it was actually
Mark
because
Laurie,
he was
Quidsy, and then he moved on to Jet.
So I think I found out about Jet like super early through him. I think you guys even had like a pre-launch thing where like if you agreed to like tweet it out to your followers, they send you a T-shirt or something
Insider.
like that. So I had the Jet Insider T-shirt and I wore it with pride through our warehouse, and I loved the model because it was like, yeah, like if you ship from fewer warehouses, you're going to pay less. And I'm like, this makes so much sense. I had like total ops brain, not realizing that the typical person doesn't actually care.
It was a business model that 100% made sense, and the technology 100% made sense. It was just like a couple years too early to actually like to be able to like have the compute to do all the math for every customer. Unfortunately, like now we can definitely do it. I don't know why nobody's doing it, but yes, no, Scott Hilton, great guy.
In 2 years, we shall all come together and start our next company. This will be great.
There we go.
I'll do a very quick intro myself. I know you guys know who I am, but a lot of folks won't. I'm a charlatan when it comes to ops. Ran a brand in 2010. We did print on demand. So my ops was complex in one way, but very easy in another, which was we made print on demand watches, and I had tens of thousands of watch components in a small office in San Francisco. And we would import the components. We digitally print. Could be a photo of your kid. It could be sports licensing, corporate gifting, you name it, influencer stuff. And then we'd assemble it in an office, which was cool. So like our own little factory in SF at 5th and Bluxom at the end. Anyway, and then I switched much more to but like we never dealt with 3PLs. Like I didn't have to do any of that because it was like the components were cheap enough and I could literally eyeball tens of thousands of products. And so I never got too deep into the weeds, which switched when I co-founded Passport Shipping in 2017. And then I was like, cross-border logistics is kind of hard. And then after that, went to Loop Returns and Joe. I actually think we might have met at Loop during Glossier. I might be wrong on that. Yeah. And then like, I've just kind of been in this ecosystem forever. So I'm grateful for the two of you. I don't even think I've given either of you the update, but co-founded Orita 2 years ago. I'm no longer doing logistics and my life is so much easier. We help brand with AI customer segmentation.
Very jealous of that.
Yeah. It's like, I don't ruin Christmas anymore. Like we help brands grow faster with like smarter segmentation. It's really nice. But anyway, good luck to you guys with your operations. All right, I want to go in a little bit into startups, and I want to kind of dive in because Joe, you made the point that uh, that I think about a lot, which is like everybody's solving the same problems, and like the flavor of the problem is slightly different, but it's the same thing. Maybe Charles, I'll actually start with you. What are like the problems that you see come up time and time again, and you're like, hey guys, this has been solved in this thread over here, and what are the like problems that like come up time and time again, and they like more nuanced answers help the community.
So interesting. Joe, I'm gonna take the other side of like what you were saying, where it's like everyone's solving the same problem, but the reason it's a problem is because like you have like a slightly different flavor of it from everyone else. And so it's like, great, I know that this, whatever we were talking about, there's a good conversation about like 3PL MSAs in the chat, I think a day or two ago. And it's like, all right, well, I did this in my last brand, which was like $100 million beverage manufacturer, but now I'm working for a $70 million shoe manufacturer. Like, what should be different, right? Like, and I feel like rounding those things off is like a lot of what people are doing in the chat. The other thing is like,
You have like you have a senior audience, so it's not like, what is an MSA? But it's like, look, I have this very discrete problem. What is different? And like tapping into other
yeah,
people.
it gets so down in the weeds, like so fast. Like, I think there's the expression about like, artists talking about where to buy cheap turpentine. It's like, it's that level of discussion where it's like, yeah, if you weren't in the space, you probably wouldn't necessarily even be able to understand what the question was about.
The hardest part, because it gets so in the weeds and it's be so much fun, is like for me to hold myself back from like, I'll build you a spreadsheet that does it. And like you're doing, you wind up like doing all the work and like, I don't have time to do all that work, but I desperately want to. Because you realize like, even with your example of like, I was selling beverages to I'm selling shoes or whatever, there is a huge amount of overlap there. But I think what we're learning, at least in the group, is that like it's what to look for. Like in that example, it's like, your rates, your shipping, there's these different pieces. And if we can like normalize for it, you can realize like really quickly, it is a lot of the same, which is a lot of the fun.
Charles, are like have the themes changed in the last year? I mean, I'm sure tariffs picked up, but like what are
Tariffs. Tariffs got a dedicated channel, which we don't do very often. In fact, maybe we never have before. So that was definitely a big one. It's interesting. I mean, Joe, I'd love to hear your like perspective on this or like what your vibe on this is. But I'd say it's like always been probably 60 to 70% talking about vendors and tools, right? Like that's, I think, the quickest hits. And it's like a little bit like the lowest common denominator thing to do. A lot of it is just like, we're thinking about working with these guys. We are about to go into a bid with these guys. Who's got a good, person who can do this random long tail thing that like we've never had to look for before. Those kinds of things get
it'll be
get
like
solved really
I'm
quickly.
thinking about leaving NetSuite. I've heard like
Yeah. Like give me your top five. Hey, I'm like, I need a new
could they
3PL. Give me some recommendations. Or, so for instance, we were on our OMS got acquired by Shopify last year. It's called Channel Ape. And so I think I went to this group being
yeah.
like, who's got a good OMS they're using? And you get recommendations. Um, that I think there's a ton of the value is in that. It's like imagine you have a group chat with your friends who all sort of do the same thing, and you can just like drop in, ask a question, pop out. Like that is a lot of it, and you can come back 15 minutes later, and like the team has built a whole manifest of information for you without you having to like dig too hard for it.
Joe, you've been in this ecosystem for a long time and you've seen big companies, marketplaces, small brands, different verticals. What are and forget startups for a minute. Like, what are some of the biggest things that you are wrestling with right now, even though you've been doing operations in every way, shape, and form for the last like 15 years? Is it, oh, retail's change or like what has changed that you are wrestling with right now?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so there's the big tariff bucket, which for us, we're a little less impacted. We make a lot of our products in North America and the USMCA. But I think like it's something that applies to all brands is that everywhere I've worked, we've always talked this talk of being able to like, we're going to automate the manual work. And we're not going to need people to like be human switchboards all the time, moving data back and forth. And like for the first time ever, it's not BS. Like, and so I spend personally at least half my day like doing that. I'd say of the three halves of my day sitting in there, there are, one of those halves, sometimes two of those halves, are me like figuring out and actually actioning, automating a bunch of this really like work that people don't want to do, that is really painful and holds the brand back, right? So now we're able to like, of course, I'm talking about AI, but like implementing it in a way that is really actionable for the first time, we're actually able to do this. I mean, I said this 6 years ago when I started Glossier. I was like, oh, look at all these manual processes. They're so terrible that someone does all day. Like, let's automate them, having no idea how to do that. And then spent years trying to figure it out and never accomplishing it. And now we're actually able to do it.
Is this across like every part of supply chain and reporting and CS, or like
Everything.
where are you
Yeah.
focused? Yeah.
Yeah. Everywhere humanly possible. I mean, I don't get, which makes me really happy. I don't get involved in our CS too much unless there's a problem.
I
It's like,
partner.
yeah, that's a yes. That team can, Alicia and her team can work, are good to go. But around reporting and data and like SLA management, right? So if you're a brand and you have a 3PL, like a lot of brands are just trusting their 3PL's portal for reporting, and that's like letting the person who took the test grade their own test. Like you can't, you have to be able to get access to data, and like in the past, getting access to data either meant bringing on a vendor, configuring doing all kinds of configuring, or having an analyst or two or three on your team. And now it is literally as easy. So, like for instance, we work with a few 3PLs when we work with Cart. Not like name dropping, but with Cart, they have an API that like I would have had to have had a developer access. Now I can take their API docs, literally hand it to ChatGPT, and within half an hour, I have like 6 Google Sheets that I'm pulling data directly from them every 15 minutes, and it's like as live as can be, and it's super actionable, and never before has it been so easy. And it's like, I don't need a bunch of people between me and the product, the output that I actually want. It can be perfect. It's fantastic. Like it's a total game changer for these brands.
Is your stack still mostly Google Sheets
Like
scripts?
Google Sheets. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do Google App scripts, and it just like pulls it in, dumps it straight into your Google Sheet, like which everybody is using, right? So like all the, not everybody, small brands,
Everyone on your
medium-sized
team.
brands, most people are Google Workspace brands. And like you have an immense amount of power now that you can leverage all this data that you never had.
Do you look, I mean, there's so much SaaS coming out too, like AI powered logistics tools, right? I feel like there's been like a little mini renaissance there. Like, do you care about any of that? Or is it just like, this is all
No,
just a wrapper around Google Sheets?
I don't care about any of it because in 6 months it's going to be totally different. Like there are even problems that like I know I could spend time solving, but I know that in 6 months someone else is going to have solved it. And so like, I don't even waste my time. So like I focus on what can we do in Google Sheets because that's where all the low hanging fruit is, right? There's all these statistics about all these brands and trying to do all this stuff with AI, and like they get no payoff from it, right? Like you're looking in the wrong place. The payoff is in the menial work that people don't want to do, and that you can free people up to do other good stuff that is like easily automatable. That's the word. And again, it's like the human switchboard stuff that every, at least e-commerce brand that I've ever met is doing. Answering the question of like, where is the stuff, right? Like, where are my shipments? What SKUs are coming in? What inventory is coming in? Like, you can, you can, you can, like, I build scripts that like look in my email and look for responses from certain shipping carriers and pull data in and just automatically populate like shipment tracking, which used to require literally a dedicated person to just do all day, every day. Like, I just do it. So that's why I'm getting a little weird, but like I just do it all day.
Joe,
I,
it feels like there's two different kind of stages. There's like the knowing the jobs to be done, which you know because you've done this before in this, right? Like you actually have all these things that you've manually done or never done because you're just like, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, but man, I'd love that report if I could do it. And then the second piece is being the tinkerer who's actually going in and going to mess around with ChatGPT and get everything set up. In terms of like the first part and knowing the jobs to be done, like if you're somebody new in the operations world, is it like there is no shortcut? You just need to make a lot of mistakes and you need to go figure out.
Yeah, I've been trying to. So I have an answer to this question, and a couple of years ago, it like didn't come across like the best, and so I've worked on answering this question for a few years now in the way that is like tactful. I think like you have to do the work, like, or you have to have people on your team who have done the work. Like you have to have one or the other. Both is nice, one or the other. But like somebody in your sphere, like on your team, say you're a leader on your team or your coworker or whatever, who has like stood within the four, if you're in a logistics capacity like me, somebody who has stood within the four walls and like kind of understands what people are talking about, not necessarily so that you can be better, but just so that you can suss out a bunch of like BS that you're getting hit with every day from your partners. And like, which is happening. So if you're like new in your career, like, or you're new to the space, like try to figure out a way to like either get in and get some work done, like get your hands actually dirty, or like bring someone in like, you know, butt to butt that is like gonna be right next to you and who has actually done the work and can like be a good BS detector.
That's a technical term for when you're, okay, got it.
Yeah, it's in the dictionary.
Charles, I want to keep hammering Joe for some more like tips. So like I want you to come in too because you see all this stuff and you've lived it. I think figuring out the jobs to be done is hard. I think I love your perspective about how most of the things are going to be solved in the coming 6 months. Are there problems that you used to have to solve that like let me flip this. Now that you're at Thursday Boots and you guys have retail and you are truly omni-channel, are there like different problems that have popped up for you that you didn't have to solve before, or is all this things that you've seen in your past lives?
I mean, for me, it's a lot of what I've seen. We're still majority e-commerce. I think like we're getting into the level of like solving, like to your point earlier, there's like sort of like the nice to have. Like I'm really like I love to have the time and ability to solve this problem, and then there's like the must solve problems. I think like I personally am getting into the isn't that a fun problem? It would be great if I can solve it. Oh, now that I can, right? So like in the past, you would never have been able to determine. So like this is a really boring example, so I apologize. But like, if you sell more than like a single widget, that means you probably have multiple box sizes, right? And those boxes really impact your shipping costs, right? Like if I ship like this marker in a box that's this big, I'm going to pay dimensional weight pricing. And that means instead of 2 ounces, I may pay like a 10-pound rate or a 9-pound rate or something like that. So like never before have like somebody in my seat had the tools for free to figure out if is this thing shipping in the right box from my warehouse. And like now you can. Like I spent a lot of time, too much time, building a whole model to look at every single order and verifying like which of our 16 different boxes it should ship in. And if it didn't ship in, what it would it cost if it did. And then I can yell at my 3PL and try and get credits back for that delta of like, this is you had the box in stock. It should have shipped in it. You picked this one that was dumb. So please, like I deserve, and maybe you don't always get a credit, but like try, you don't get what you don't ask for. But never before have you had the ability to do that again for free without bringing on some brand that takes a rev share or some other product out there.
Really interesting getting into it. Charles, I want to ask, kind of going back to thinking more like on a meta level, thinking about the whole community and the problems that people are diving into. Aside from the like, hey, different flavors of the same type of problem piece, are there themes that have really picked up in the last year or two that are like top of mind for the best? You're not talking to a generic head of ops, right? Like you're talking to some of the best brands and best retailers in the world. Like where is like the cutting edge of ops conversations going? What are people most focused on?
It's really interesting. I think, Joe, I think is like uniquely, I think he's definitely like in the vanguard of what's going on. I feel like a lot of teams just kind of reading between the lines in conversations, a lot of teams are still just like totally overwhelmed just for like the amount of staff that they have or resources they have, or like, I feel like there was this lovely peak during COVID where every CEO and marketing team was like, ops is actually really important to our brand. And like, there was like a glorious couple of years where operators were sort of held on, on they were saving the company. Right. And I feel like from my conversations with people in the group, like that's worn off a little bit. I feel like a big recurring conversation throughout the group or every time we host like a live chat or whatever, it's just like, what are you guys doing to like have a sensible S&OP process? And what are you doing to like get your CEO to like take, the needs of the operation seriously, or like not have to air freight in a bunch of stuff at the last minute to like make a launch. And that's not a technology thing. That's a people thing. And it's shocking to me how few companies seem to have like be really happy with that process. So yeah, I don't know.
Is there some macro thing that has changed in the last year or two? Is it like CEOs, because acquisition marketing has gone one? What is the reason that, like a good ops leader can't get their CEO to understand that like the air freight is going to crush margins, which is going to have these knock-on effects?
Well, I don't, and maybe I just hear about it from the people where it's like, it's not going well. But I think that was sort of always the case. And there was only like a temporary relief from it during COVID because it became such an important, factor. I don't know, Joe, if you feel free to push back on me with that, but
No, I won't push you at all. I mean, I think that what I have learned, so like I worked at many different companies, some that don't make any money, a lot that don't make any money or didn't, and many that do. And like I've realized, in every CEO or founder, there's a lot of similarities there, especially if it's like a founder driven brand. But at the end of the day, pretty much every single one cares about money. And I think that a lot of ops leaders have a huge opportunity to speak that language and don't. So if like to the point that Charles has made that example that everybody's experienced, like I'll tell, there was a brand I worked for, and you can figure out who before my time, uh, I think air freighted whole planes worth or like of pallets of puffballs from overseas into the US, which is literally just air shipping air, like that example of having to air freight anything at the last minute to make a launch. Um, the ops person, you're gonna get it done because that's your job, right? Your job at the end of the day, you're at the bottom of the hill and like you just have to figure it out and do it. Um, the thing that ops leaders can and should do is like track everything. So I wasn't always a big believer in this because I'm very ADD and like it's hard for me to do this, but I've learned the value of it at Thursday is that if you really lean on tracking everything that you do in terms of costs and impact. And it's a lot of bit of work, but it is so worth it because at the end of that exercise, you can speak the language your CEO is speaking, which is money. And you can say, well, if we hadn't made that decision if we placed the PO earlier, or if the launch hadn't been pulled up, it cost us X, Y, Z amount, and that's why our costs are up, and that hit your margin however much it did. And that is the language I think they understand. And some ops leaders miss opportunities to speak to that. And no one does.
Charles, go
I, I
on.
was just, I was just thinking, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent on this, but as you were talking before, Joe, and just thinking, Aaron, about your question about trends, one thing I'd love to hear your guys' take on, because I only see like a narrow sliver of this, is just like, what does the team composition look like at a company now across marketing, across ops? And I'll tell you my like little narrow window on it, and love to hear your thoughts. But for me, like in the last couple of years, a couple of things we've seen. One, so many more people going fractional, like basically didn't exist 2 years ago. We had to sort of like rewrite our admissions rules a little bit to accommodate this because before it was like no consultants. And now even if you're at a company, like you might do some consulting on the side. So like a ton more fractional. The other thing that I've noticed, at least from again, where I send out this weekly ops jobs newsletter. And I feel like a couple of years ago, well-paid senior ops roles were coming up, at like name brand companies were coming up 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. And then there was always like a steady drumbeat of like, manager, coordinator, whatever. And today I would say the manager coordinator role, which I would have expected, but kind of gotten nuked by AI. There's still as many of them as ever. Like, it's right there every week in the newsletter, like, 5 or 10 of these roles. And that like glorious, VP ops, 250 to 350K at a brand that you've heard of. Like, I don't see them popping up in public anymore. Which is again, sort of the opposite of what I would have expected in a world where like someone like Joe can basically run the company with AI. So I'd be curious, like, is that happening, in other parts of the market too? Or like, what do you guys think of that?
I still now you see it's all relative. Like I used to hear, and this is not exaggeration. I used to hear from recruiters daily during like the heyday of like 2021 to 2022, and then it really dropped off like monthly, and now we're back up to weekly. And like, but I do think things have changed, right, in terms of these roles. Are they remote? Are they not? I have found in terms of like the sort of like mid-level hiring, like it's all about your size, but I think there is a focus. Like, so companies I've worked for, we had elsewhere, not Thursday, we have hired for scale. So you're hiring ahead, assuming growth is going to come. And I feel like that whole mindset has flipped around where now it's more like we're going to grow and we're going to, like many of us will be a little stressed. Like I'm very stressed out all the time, all the work we all have to do. But I think you find that you've transitioned more to like some more middle manager, coordinator type of roles, but much more like working VPs and working senior leaders, right? Like less like sitting in meetings and harumphing and more like actually doing the work. I used to do a lot of harumphing. Now I do a ton of work. And it is better, and you get overall team works a lot better as well. And so you find you need to, I personally find I need to hire like fewer. Like if I could never hire again, I'd be super happy, because we just have a nice core team that like knows what it's doing and is super competent. Yeah, that's the dream. Whereas else I used to equate like success to like how big can my team get? It's like,
Joe, I think you can work hard and harumph, and I think you've earned the
I mean, I
right
still harumph.
to do both.
That's my
Okay, cool.
wife.
Charles, I think pretty similar take. I think there are a couple things. Number one is like there's just way less capital for brands, right, than there was like during the quote unquote heyday. And acquisition marketing is harder. It's more expensive. And so like I think to Joe's point, I think people are just much slower to hire. Hiring for scale just seems risky. I feel this exactly the same way on the commerce enablement side, by the way. Like obviously with Orita, but also with all the random companies I'm an investor advisor and are just like kind of old enough to like meet and talk. Our team is the same size as it was 8 months ago, give or take, or it's maybe even a little smaller. And we've 4x'd. And I don't think it's like, like there was like some magic AI thing that happened. I think we've just hired like a somewhat senior team that is like a bunch of like people who are acting as ICs, even though they could go build an org. And the bar to go higher is like, you've done it, you figured it out. And like, there's actually a ton of leverage by hiring that role. In the roles where there isn't, it's like you let fires burn. And so I think there's like a combination of tools, but I also think it's just like because there's less capital in the ecosystem. And again, we're talking like much more like commerce specific on like both the brand side and the commerce enablement. I think everybody's just like actually excited about driving efficiency.
Yeah.
Well, and like,
That's
I
a
don't
very
know about you
satisfying
guys, like,
answer.
yeah, I went, I experienced one round of layoffs and like wasn't part of it, but like was at a company for it. And like, it's the worst thing in the world. And I think one of the things like looking, like I mean, traumatized by it. I think I now view a team very differently. Whereas like perhaps in that more hiring for scale world, you had a lot of people who did like 30% of a real job. And I don't want to sound controversial, but like, there just wasn't that much to do. It wasn't anybody's fault. There wasn't that much work to do. And I think like I would do anything to avoid ever having to lay off anybody again. If that means like doing a ton of work and making sure everybody's like at 80%, like not 85%, then like that's way better than having to like cut people off a team. That sucks.
Charles, on the marketing side, just as like one quick follow-up, we serve like SMBs through like Spanx, True Classic, Thursday Boots, you may have heard of them. So we like kind of run the gamut. It is varied who uses an agency and who doesn't. Like I just rolled off a call today with a bad company that we all know that's like gone very far. And they're like, look, we're really lean. We need some leverage. Can you refer us a couple agencies? And so I think it's like, I think on the marketing front, it's like as always, like it depends, but I do think it's the same thing of like brands are actually, if they said like 7, now they have like 3 or they have 2, right? And they're like trying to figure out how to be more efficient. And then I think the smart ones are being like, well, if I can tap into this expertise and partnering with this company buys me a lot of speed or buys me time or buys me leverage, like, I can spend X dollars on an agency or I can spend 10X more on Meta in the next 3 weeks. Like, let me just spend on the agency on the like software that like helps improve my retention marketing so that I can then go spend more to acquire, right? Like increase LTV. But I think it's everywhere where people are seeking efficiency. I'm definitely finding there's like a lot of people who are looking for AI for AI's sake. And now it's like officially, hey, what is the job to be done? Do I need AI to solve it? Or do I need like some whiz bang thing? Or do I need a spreadsheet? If I need a spreadsheet, like, can I do it myself? Maybe leveraging ChatGPT or whatever it is, right? But it could just be Zapier that works. And like, that will get you what you need. So I do think there's a big focus on like job to be done. I want to ask one more question on the marketer ops front, because I think like if you look at the best brands, they have the combination of like, they have incredible product. They speak to their customers at the right time in the right channel. And then obviously like they have an great operations, right? Where like the right products are in stock, the customer experience on the like, just like whether it's the unboxing or like the timeliness is good. If it's in retail, like the right things are there. Is there consistent points of tension for bigger brands between marketing and operations? Or at this point, is that kind of like everybody's acknowledging that like to build a great brand, kind of both sides of the house need to come together. I'm curious, like, we don't want to go into companies, but like, is there like tension? Is there any scuttlebutt? Like anything that we're missing by not being in startups? Yeah.
I think it's brand by brand. Like I can confidently say that like Thursday, we're all good. Like I think everybody knows like we need each other and we got to work together and like, we're very focused on the same things. Like goals are heavily aligned. I think other places I've worked, there's a huge disconnect between like the example I gave earlier of like, oh, we're going to pull up a launch date. And it's like, well, if you're going to pull up a launch date like that, there's like real stuff we're talking about here. We're moving, there's just real impacts. And there was and that those are cultural company things where there was just like a lack of awareness of like, well, why can't you do it? Well, because it's on a boat somewhere in the Pacific. And I think that caused a lot of tension, but those are, and Charles, you may disagree. My experience has been those are very like company specific things. And it does lead to what was mentioned earlier, like where does ops sort of live in the hierarchy? Like if ops really has a seat at the table, then for the most part, it's good culturally. If it has a seat like at the kids' table, then it's much less understood.
Yeah. And I really like when, product, like, I feel like, for a brand, like you got to have a good product, you got to have good marketing. It's got to get there, on time, intact, whatever. And I think one thing that at least I feel like I've been seeing more is it's not just like product is in the conversation too, right? Like the beginning of the supply chain has to be part of like, well, like we're going to put it in these boxes. It's a white box and it ships through the mail. Like it's not going to come out white. So like, let's figure out like the full throughput here. Like customer going to see an ad. It's going to look like this. Okay. Here's the product we need to deliver. Here's how we're going to get it there.
It's a good point about
Yeah, I
that.
remember at one point, I'll say at Glossier, we did really innovative, cool stuff with product packaging. Product is a good story, and we were really trying to figure out how to like. I was part of a group that was trying to figure out, with the brand team, how to push that to the next level. And like one of the really interesting product packaging things that I'm so happy nobody caught on to was like literally like the like Pillsbury like biscuit can that you snap like that was proposed to ship through the mail, and like that sounds amazing, but like that would never work. And yeah, like
You
there
take
was good
away all of the
partnership.
nice things, Joe. We just want that like satisfying, and then it's like,
It would be
oh, there's
amazing,
a
right? And
peppermint
then, but
patty.
like imagine that in the UPS like hub, there's a pop, 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 pop
Yeah.
as they, went around the sorter. So
All right.
popping
I love
away.
it. I got a couple more questions for you guys. I'm not letting you go yet. We think a lot about customer retention, right? And like customer joy and customer happiness and CSAT, NPS, whatever. Where does like operational excellence and customer retention overlap? And like, if you think about brands, like what are, what are brands missing on that side of the house? Is it just like the packaging and the timeliness? Is there anything else? Yeah.
And it's like at the end of the day, when I boiled this down in real simple terms for a few years now, it's like you have to get people what they ordered when you told them they would get it, right? And that's all customers. So if you start with the customer, that's all they care about, right? They've placed their order and you've said, hey, you'll get it in 3 to 5 business days. You have to get it them the thing they ordered, and it should be correct, not like wrong color or whatever, in the time frame that you said they would get to them, and that's all they care about. And like at its most fundamental level, like that's the whole ball game. And if you do a great job at that, they don't care at all. Like unless it was for a wedding or something or whatever, something really special, they don't care if you did a great, amazing job and like all the work it takes to get it there. Customers really care when you do a very poor job, and then that has a real ripple effect through sort of the lifetime value of that customer. And are they going to want to just stay shop and stay being a customer? Are they going to self-select out, like not shop with you anymore? Like it is in my experience, like very binary. Unless you have some really unique thing, it's very binary, and customers will roll if the experience is extremely poor. Most of the time, it's not. They can keep giving us poor service, and I keep shopping there. But otherwise,
Yeah, it is like such a weird thing because like obviously with the product, if the product is defective, you're going to notice. But like there is like people now have like taste almost for delivery. It's like if you're a big name brand and your thing shows up in a weird beaten up box, or it's late, or it's through some like postal carrier that like you've never heard of or whatever, like customers notice. I don't think it's maybe not like the biggest thing they're going to be focused on. Like if they open it up and it works fine, like fine. But like I remember having this explicit experience where it's like order something from a big brand that like should have their act together on the ops side, and you get it, and it's just like a little bit off, and it's like why are you doing this? It doesn't match like with the quality of the rest of the brand.
You're absolutely right too. It's for instance, in that exact point of like taste has really impacted the market. So like, who remembers LaserShip? Was anybody ever excited to get a LaserShip tracking number? No. Like, no. But and so they merged with OnTrack. And you know why they took the OnTrack brand? Because OnTrack in the West Coast, great experience. Well, Aaron, maybe you're wrong, but my
No, sure.
experience having run a facility out there, like OnTrack was
Right.
great. It was like within a day, you got everything. And so now that whole company is OnTrack because the leadership brand was so bad. And I would get a tracker and be like, I'm never going to get it
Joe,
every time.
the number one thing I want to change in tracking is when I order even from Apple, which should be better at this, and I get the tracking label, and it's like it's on the way, and then you click it, and it's like label's not yet. There is no box yet, and I'm like,
People have been trying to figure that out for years. I swear it's just like a delay.
why don't you just
Or
not
like
send it, Joe?
it's your own branded page. People have the custom tracking pages and just say like the label's been printed, it's coming
Use
to
the
you.
logo. Use one.
Right, delay sending the label, just delay sending the email by like 6 hours or 10 hours
That'll
or
be
something.
our next hour. We'll come up with like just a very simple. This is good. All right, I got two more questions for you guys. One is about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and I realize this is dumb that I didn't even ask this yet, but like we have a month, right? And then obviously people are planning into 2026, right? And like at some point it's a month, but if you don't have the inventory in stock right now, you are where you are. What are the things that like you can or should be paying attention to in the next 30 days that like can actually impact BFCM or can impact like a great start to 2026 that people should kind of keep top of mind? Joe, maybe, yeah, specifically, but Charles, obviously anything else that you've seen, I'd love to
I'm
hear.
out for this one. Yeah.
I'll try to be brief. I love the sound of my own voice. I think something really underrated, well, not even underrated. Nobody's good at forecasting your volume or whatever. Everybody's bad at it. But you have to keep trying to be better at it. And I think a lot of brands or a lot of people just like say, I can't forecast, like I'm going to give up. If you can give if it's your own, if you're shipping stuff, let's say it's your own warehouse or your 3PL, whatever, if you can give them like anything is better than nothing, because it gets back to like the most, I think is a really critical part is around like managing expectations. It's not just managing like the expectations of your stakeholders internally, whether it's marketing or sales or whatever. It's also like managing your own expectations and then managing the 3PL's expectations. And like, if you can, or your warehouse, whatever, if you can like hold hands around even some type of forecast, even if it's like a monthly forecast, your experience through Q4 and into next year is going to be an order of magnitude better. Last year, we had a little whoopsie with our forecast. It's a big whoopsie. Cost me 10 pounds of weight gain in Q4 where we under forecasted. And it was quite the labor to get everybody to not ruin Christmas, because Santa brings a lot of $200 boots. And so if you can like, it's one little area that is critically underrated, but if you can like do it even kind of right, your whole Q4 can be dramatically better. And people should just try.
Thanks. Charles, maybe a slightly different question for you. Again, you get to see all the conversations, right? Of like some of the kind of best brands retailers out there. Where do you think there's new innovation coming in ops? Or like, what are the things that people are kind of chomping at the bit for, or the next problems that people are solving?
It's interesting. I think that like I'm not seeing that much new. I mean, if you saw my newsletter last week, I was like, where are all the new startups, right? Like I think there are a couple different like buckets where you could innovate specifically focused around supply chain, right? One is you come up with like an entirely new physical modality, right? You guys kind of did that with Passport. It's like, oh, wow, I couldn't really easily ship like things internationally. And now here we go. I got a service that does it. Like Flexport did this. Factory Quality, I guess to some extent, did this. They wrapped an old modality in like a new, format. And then you've got like software. And within software, you've got people who are trying to be a platform that can do everything, right? We've got a whole bunch of neo ERPs and operating systems for ops that like play nice with ERPs, but automate a lot of the stuff that NetSuite can't do. And then you've got a lot of people who are doing point solutions where it's like, we're just going to be like the best inventory forecasting thing out there. And, we got a million different AI models and you can track when you've made decisions and you can do multi-stakeholder input and blah, blah, blah. We're just going to do that really well. But then you got to figure out how it plugs in with your existing stack. And then finally, you got people being the pipes. And I think there's less and less of that because I think API connections are getting kind of more and more trivial. But that was like a big thing for a long time. And I feel like that's kind of the playing field. And everyone is already either like, there've been a ton of AI native tools that have been launched. I get hit up with like a new AI inventory forecasting tool, like literally every week, right? So many people are going after that ERP, for in the logistics space, like, oh, it's like an agent. It's going to do all your, trucking brokerage, like busy work for you, right? Like that is very saturated. I don't really know where the new territory. Oh, and all the existing players are of course building AI into their existing tools. So it's like, I don't really know where the AI ship is launched. I don't know where the new thing is going to come from at this stage, other than not that many people, like penetration for all these new tools is still, I think, relatively low. Like we did a sort of a joint survey with Parabola maybe 6 months ago, and we're like, what do you use for your, your forecasting, for your quality, for your whatever. And like, we gave people a list of like every tool on the market that like they might use. 98% was like spreadsheets still. So like people like Joe prove that you can push that like a really long way. I don't know if it's a problem, but I do think that like there are more and more conversations about like, oh, hey, like, what is this new tool? How do we, is it worth looking at? Should we integrate with our stack? Like there's a long, long way to run to the extent that someone is going to be trying out new products. Like there's just not that much adoption yet overall.
The quintessential business plan pitch, at least 15 years ago when I was doing my MBA, was like, people use fax machines to do this, and we're just going to make it internet. And then there will be something there. It feels like what you're saying is a lot of the stuff that's happening is like, actually spreadsheets might already do the trick. Yeah, Joe, chime in, please.
Yeah, already do the trick. Like, I just imagine if I had dove headfirst, I almost made this mistake. Like, ChatGPT got real popular at the end of 2023. And that's sort of when like AI as we entered the zeitgeist, right? Like in the way that it is today. And like if I had dove headfirst into some product in like the summer of 2024, like right now, I'd be kicking myself because there'd be 10 other things that probably do it better. Right. And you would have spent all the time of like integrating it and learning it and getting only to be like, well, that new whiz bang thing is better. Right. And so that's the hesitation right now is like, do I dive into like whatever agentic thing that somebody is building today? Or is like in 8 months, there's going to be some agent that builds agents that are like way better than whatever there is today. Like, I think that is sort of the hesitation around all these new products that exist in the market. It's like, wow, are they going to be any good in a year?
There's a CEO in our group, like full-time, full-on CEO, sent me a loom the other day of a tool that he built with a vibe coding platform that's better looking and seems more functional than like 95% of the like pure SaaS tools that I've seen. I think that space is going to be, unless you're doing some like really hard math or like something that requires, regulatory or something like complicated with a moat. Don't just try and like throw software at this right now. Cause like, it's going to be tough. Go build Portless for Thailand. That's something that someone requested recently.
It's funny.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Where my mind was going is like the portlesses, the 2 boxes, like the people who are actually like touching physical products and are building product around it is actually the like hardest. Like that is the one that also takes multiple years to build. So it's not like, oh, cool, some new coding. Just one quick comment, and then I'll ask you guys for like, kind of last sauce. But Joe, the way you just talked about this is really eye-opening to me. Again, as somebody who like sees a lot of the tech side, right, is I do think the onus on a technology company is to make it so dead simple for you to try it and so dead simple for you to turn it off at some point. So when, like, you may not be building a venture-backed billion-dollar company, but go solve Joe's problem today, knowing that there might be a better solution in 6 months. But if you can do it where it's like no sweat off your back, that is actually like a real opportunity. But it's like when it's a very involved thing and it's changing my workflows, and I'm not quite convinced because of the pace of innovation that you're going to be the premier product.
That's how you'll know when AI is there, in my opinion. When AI is so good that you can just say, turn it on, and it like dives into all your stuff and figures it out and does it for you, that's when we're there.
John, that'll be your third startup coming out of this. All right, we've a minute left. I think we all have hard stops because we're very important people, and one of us lives overseas and it's bedtime. I want to know, where can people find you? If you have any last sage advice, I invite you to say it, but at the very least, like, where can people find you? Charles, I'm putting you on the spot first.
Man, I wasn't ready with the sage advice other than, if you're a senior operator and you want to hang out with some other senior operators, come join StartOps. I'm on LinkedIn, mostly StartOps. The account is very active as well. We post a lot of stuff there. So yeah, give us a follow.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Stopped trying to be a supply chain influencer like a year and a half ago, so I haven't posted in a long time. And once I started getting on podcasts, I was like, mission accomplished. I'm good. I think sage advice, like forecasting thing I said earlier, but also like the most important thing you can do if you're building a team or you're joining a team, try to join a team of like clowns, like a cast of characters that you work with that make you laugh, that maybe you're kind of like idiots but smart idiots. Like that's what you want. Like a cast of characters is the way to go. And in operations, and it's just crushing your soul every day. And like you want to curl up under your desk in a ball. Like the only thing besides maybe medication that's going to get you through is going to be the people that you're working with, whether it's vendors or on your team. But try to work with some clowns.
Oh, I love it. I reflect back on, I think my peak as an operator where I could just get shit done was at Modify, where we were like doing corporate gifts and I had to fold 2,000 boxes in a day and I just had my routine. And so like, I do miss actually being in the room where it's just like physically moving the good and how hard it is and just like getting the group together. So I hear you. But I'm not a clown. I'm a serious person. So
Very soon.
guys, this was awesome. Thank you. I took a bunch of notes. It was just such a joy to chat with you both. So appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thanks
for having
for
us
having me.
on, Aaron.
Good seeing you guys.
Catch you next time.